Hi, my name is Belle Berroyer and welcome to Dazliouslearning the Language of Autism. This is the third week, I think now we're on, of play, autism and the senses. Previous weeks we've talked about taste and touch, the senses of those and how they can affect play with your autistic children particularly and adults too. We've also talked about visual and auditory, sound and sight senses and how that can influence, affect play for your young autistic children. So this week we're going to talk about smell and how that can affect play, which seems like maybe a bit of an odd thing to say, but not when, as physical, human beings, we are, where there's a whole lot of about us going on, but when you're very sensitive and your senses, we all have senses, and some of, we all have heightened senses to an extent. Like my ears are really, really, really good. And I think maybe it's because my eyes aren't quite so, 100%. They're amazing. They do a great job, but they lack. So my hearing is kind of like super tuned. But for autistic children, often, not always, their sensory processing is off the scale of what a neurotypical person wouldn't even begin to understand, unless you live with someone that's sensitive in that way, or you know people that have told you, or you've met people that have told you what it's like. And it's a thing. It's really, to me, and I don't know because I haven't spoken to every single autistic person on the planet yet. But pretty much everybody has said sensory needs, sensory issues have been what has caused the biggest misunderstanding in behaviour and communication, because senses are, how we perceive the world. We perceive them through our senses, so it's a big deal, which is why I like talking about it so much. So this week, smell and how can it affect play. Smell is probably the hardest heightened sense or issue or difficulty or challenge for an autistic child. It's the hardest one probably for an outsider, a family member or a parent or a educational provider, whatever, who to actually figure out what is going on. And it's often really difficult or even impossible, depending on the age and the abilities of the child's experiences, to explain what is going on. So often you'll get the behaviour which might not automatically equal the reason. For example, if a sense is heightened, the sense of smell is heightened, say, just for the sake of numbers, say, 5 times the average person's sense of smell, then that what could be a pleasant smell or regarded as a pleasant smell, like a nice fragrant flower, if that smell is turned up 5 times and it feels like it's literally going inside your brain and your head is going to go with the smell of that, then that might not be so pleasant. And it may also cause pain, actual physical pain and confusement, and you might be the child might show behaviours that they're afraid of something, and it could literally be because the sense of smell, a bit like if you've got mustard or you smell mustard or something that actually, you go, ow, and it actually makes your nose hurt. When the nose senses glands that are all going on in there are really challenged, sometimes that does cause pain, real intense pain as well. It's a real pain. And of course, when people are in pain, they will express that in different ways. And that could be, you know, they could hit their nose over and over and over and over and over. They could rub it. They might start sneezing. They might get nosebleeds. They might headbang. They might run away from the smell, even though you may not know that it's a smell they're running away from, and they might not be able to explain it. They may vomit. That's been said a few times when a smell, and I'm sure on some level we've all experienced that. We'll smell something and if it's really unpleasant, it's bleh. We've all been there. We've all experienced that feeling. So toys and activities that you know, we're thinking, oh, what could smell? You know, things like Play-Doh, paint, glue, you know, cooking, baking, sensory play, like, you know, providing spaghetti, cooked spaghetti and pasta shapes, and oh God, I'm trying to think of, you know, making your own slime and all sorts of things, like putting bubble bath or, you know, smelly essences in water play. So many things that if a child is smell sensitive, these are the tiny small things of actual smelly stuff that could really create you know, a major problem for your child, your autistic child. And if they've got an understimulated sense of smell, you know, that in its own way can create some very seemingly bizarre looking play, behavioural manifestations, because, you know, they could be seeking to activate their smell sense, or the sense of smell may be so sort of understimulated that they'll want to smell something that may be gross to the average person, like faeces. Their own faeces is a real big one, which, you know, most people will, you know, don't like the smell of that, but some autistic children, and you know, it's quite a common one, enough for me to mention it anyway. Not all autistic children, obviously, but it can be, you know, it's not unusual for an autistic child when they're very young to not be bothered by that smell, and so they might want to, you know, smear it and paint, looks like they're painting with it, or even eat it, smear it all over their bodies. And there's so many different reasons why an autistic child might do that, but I'm just specifically talking about play and smell. And play, you know, what is pleasurable to play or classed as play to one person is very different to another. And when we're children, all of us, when we're all of us are children, everything that is new is like play. Life is play. Play is living. It's only the adults in our lives that start to separate what is playing and what is working, and then they become very separate things. But when you're young, you know, everything is play. Everything is just, it's not even play, it just is an experience. So it's also, I think, important to remember that it's adults and grown-ups that label a particular activity play. Oh, you can go and play now, or stop playing now, we're going to do this now. And you kind of learn very quickly as a child that, oh, play is something that you have to earn, or play is something that you do when you've done loads of work. It's a separate thing to actual normal everyday living, which is a bit of a shame, I think. But anyway, that's another subject. So I've got some notes behind me here, so I'm just trying to make sure I stay on track. So how can you help a child if their sense of smell is really intensely strong? It's like a lot of observational time with your young children, or anywhere, whatever age they're at, whenever you come into seeing these videos, you know. A lot of advice is to like go in there and interact and socialize to promote that and to get your autistic child to be more social. Well, my stance on that is to just back off, because the more you watch, the more you learn about anything. And you will learn about your child a whole lot more if you spend that precious and valuable time just watching. Not feeling the need as a parent that you have to interact, or you have to educate, or you have to be putting this and saying that. It's worth putting the time in to just sit back, watch and enjoy your child and learn about. You'll have a better idea of learning about where they're at the more you watch and the longer you watch. You know, and if you think you've sussed it, double check it, because what you see isn't always what is happening in somebody else's head. Being a mum to my son, who is a non-verbal communicator and autistic, and I also used to work with kids. I'm a nursery nurse. That was my career. So I spent a lot of time watching children play and be. And I've spent a lot of time watching George, and over the years, because I already knew how to do that from my professional job. And when we used to do assessments on children, I was always about, well, we need to spend a lot more time watching instead of keep interacting, because you're interfering with their natural flow of being. So I really advise that you take a step back and you spend a lot of time watching and really listening and hearing what your child is doing. And there's more than one way to communicate, and all behaviour is communication, and you really will reap the benefits of that. And that is knowledge, and that is wisdom for you as a parent, a carer, a professional, where you can then really support your child in their needs, and you can really understand why they play the way they play, or why they need to do the things they need to do with objects and activities, which might not be the traditional, or a word that I find really challenging, appropriate way to play with a toy. I always kind of think, appropriate to who exactly? But these are really good. Watching, listening is a really good tool, massively. So what can you do if smell is an issue? And you'll know, because behaviours, they'll put things up to their nose and smell, or that's the most obvious one. And that might be not just because of smell, but because that's how they like to feel and experience something one way. But you can be aware of the environment that they're playing in. So, if a load of smelly cooking has just taken place, and then you're asking them to come in and play or do a certain activity with you, and they're resisting it, it might be because of the smells. It might not be, but we're talking about possibilities here. Something for you to think about, and then maybe cross off the list, or something for you to ask them or explore with them about smell. And this can take days, weeks, months, years. This is just information. Also of the actual, Play-Doh. If you buy Play-Doh, which is for some people a really gorgeous smell, so gorgeous that they want to eat it. But for some it's grotesque. So you could try making your own Play-Doh. There's loads of recipes online that are full of natural ingredients that won't cause your child any harm if they do eat it. It might be very salty, so you just make sure they drink plenty. But if you don't put any chemicals of colour, you can make Play-Doh with oil and flour and water and various other things that are sort of food stuff. You could do that. If you've got room fresheners, plug-in smelly things, that could be causing a lot of distortion and distress for your child if the smells are really toxic or very, very strong, and a child isn't going to be able to figure out where that smell is coming from. So it's just something for you to think about. Smelly candles can cause problems, detergents, washing liquids, powders for clothes. It might not be, it could be the clothes itself, but it could be the way the clothes smell. It's just really concentrating on the sense of smell, and anything that might smell that you regard as a nice smell might just be disgusting to your sensitive autistic child. Bubble bath, you know, they may love baths, they may love being in the water, but they may not be able to get in it because it could be because of the smells. Again, it might not be, but it could be. It's like eliminating possibilities. Don't just assume that if a child is resisting an activity or a situation, it might not be the actual activity itself. It could be the temperature of the water, it could be the smell of the water or what's in the water, it could be the fact that they love bubbles and they want bubbles, it could be that they really don't like bubbles and they don't want bubbles, it could be a whole manner of other things and not actually the activity. So if you've got the temperature of the water right for them, and you got bubbles that didn't smell, and you didn't have the particular light on in the room or a light that brings on a fan, if you took all that sensory stimulation down and then it was just a bath, you may find that your child would get in the bath. I'm not saying that's the answer to all children and everything, I'm just giving you an example as to why it's worth figuring out these senses. Okay, so I wanted to talk about synesthesia, but I'm going to do that in another video because I don't want these videos to be too long, because there's a lot of information that I give. But I just wanted to add the reason why I do these videos, just as a reminder, like for first and foremost, I am not sitting here saying I have all the answers and that I am an expert by anywhere near the stretch of the word. I mean, is anyone an expert in autism? I do see many people with the title of autism expert, and if they feel that they are, then that's fine and dandy, but there is so much to learn about autism. It's a never-ending subject. It's a bit like saying I know everything about neurological processes, and you couldn't, because every single human being processes things differently. That's what's so fascinating and wonderful about our marvellous brains. And it's the same with autism. So I'm definitely not saying that. And I am open to learning. I'm constantly learning. I'm giving you what I've learned so far. So whatever I talk about is not exhaustive in any way. There is so much more, so much more. And there are many other people out there, especially autistic communities, autistic people that know a whole lot more than me. I'm just doing my bit from my perspective and my experiences with my darling boy and other stuff that I have been lucky enough to be told by other autistic people. Sometimes children, but mostly teenagers to adults. So I just like passing that information on, because I think the more we share the information that we're learning, the more helpful it's going to be for everybody, especially our autistic children. And that's the whole point. That's the whole point why I really do this, is I want to support parents and carers and professional people, because ultimately it's about understanding our autistic children so that they can be honoured, accepted and seen, and, you know, allowed and enabled and empowered to be who they are. And if we know the reasons why they have certain behaviours and the way of communicating, and how they, a little insight into how they may see the world, then it means we don't fear these behaviours, and then it means that we don't see them as having anything wrong with them or feeling that they need to be fixed or cured or changed, because when there are valid reasons, and there are always valid reasons why an autistic person is the way they are and behaves the way they are and expresses themselves the way they are, just like there are reasons why everybody does. So that's my main goal, is to kind of try and help parents not panic and step into a fearful place where rash decisions are made, and weird and crazy therapies are put on their children because they feel as parents that they're doing the right thing. I'm here to empower parents, empower family members, to bridge the gap, to create a closer relationship, and to just, really know that your child doesn't need as much fixing as maybe you're being told from outside influences. There are many things about them, pretty much everything about them that doesn't need to be changed. Nothing needs to be changed about them, but just is supported, and with the right environments and the right skills from the non-autistic person, that autistic person will thrive and develop and grow at their own pace in their own time in a really fun and loving way. Like, life can be fantastic for everybody. Just because you have an autistic child or your child is autistic, it doesn't mean that suddenly life has become doom. It doesn't have to be that way. And everyone has challenges. Some days are good, some days are bad for all of us. So that's my intention for doing these videos, and I just wanted to remind people if they hadn't heard me say that before. Okay, so next week we're going to be talking about a little bit about synesthesia, and I will be putting links and things on my descriptions, and I'll be putting videos up around throughout the video and this video. Please subscribe so that you get up-to-date videos of up and coming. And next week as well, I'm going to be talking a bit about water play. So have a wonderful week, and thank you for watching.